What if Issei was Vempire and married with 10 girls and had 100 kids? The night air tasted of copper and moonlight. Issei Hayate lay broken in the park fountain, his blood painting the water crimson as it flowed from the gaping wound in his chest. Above him, Rainer's beautiful face twisted with contempt, her fallen angel wings spread wide against the starlit sky. "Goodbye, Issei-kun," she purred, her spear of light still dripping with his blood. "You served your purpose. Such a shame you were just a worthless human." She flew away, leaving him to die alone in the cold water. This is it, Issei thought, consciousness fading. I'm really going to die a virgin, aren't I? What a pathetic ending. But death did not come. Instead, something ancient stirred in his blood. Something that had been sleeping for 17 years, waiting for this exact moment, the moment between life and death where the seal could finally break. Pain exploded through Issei's body, but not the pain of dying. This was the pain of transformation, of rebirth. His heart, which had stopped beating, suddenly lurched back to life with a rhythm that was both familiar and completely alien. Each beat sent waves of power coursing through his veins, rewriting his very DNA. His eyes snapped open, no longer the warm brown they had been. Now they glowed crimson in the darkness, with slit pupils like a predator's. Hunger. The word echoed through his mind like thunder, primal and overwhelming. He could smell everything now, the garbage from the can 50 meters away, the perfume Rainier had been wearing, the scent of every person who had walked through this park in the last week. And blood. Oh God, the blood. He could smell it everywhere, hear it pumping through the veins of every living thing within 100 meters. But more than that, he felt power. Power that made his previous existence seem like a candle compared to the sun. Power that sang through every cell of his body, demanding to be used, to be unleashed upon the world. What's happening to me? Issei gasped, climbing out of the fountain on unsteady legs. His reflection in the water showed him the truth. His canines had elongated into proper fangs. His skin had become pale and flawless, and his eyes, those crimson eyes, stared back at him with an predatory intelligence that was definitely not human. And then the voice came. Not from outside, but from within his very soul. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Initializing. Error. New host parameters detected. Recalibrating. Crimson Blood Dragon Emperor Mode. Activated. A massive surge of power erupted from Issei's left arm as a gauntlet of deep crimson metal materialized. But it was unlike any sacred gear recorded in history. The usual red and green of Draig's armor had been transformed into a deep blood red with black veins running through it like corrupted circuitry. The gem that should have been green now pulsed with a crimson light that matched his eyes. "Partner," came Draig's voice, but even the ancient dragon sounded shocked. "What have you become?" "I feel vampire. But not just any vampire. This is the blood of first progenitors, the original vampires who walked before the Great War." "How is this possible?" "I don't know," Issei shouted, staring at his transformed arm. "I was human this morning. I was just a normal perverted guy who wanted to date girls, and a scent hit him, then carried on the wind. Sweet, intoxicating, and impossibly alluring. He turned instinctively toward it, his newly awakened senses zeroing in on a presence approaching through the park. Rias Gremory emerged from the shadows, her crimson hair seeming to glow in the moonlight. She had come to resurrect him as her servant, having felt the pulse of a dying sacred gear user. But she stopped dead in her tracks when she saw him standing there, very much alive, with power radiating from him in visible waves. "You," she breathed, her blue-green eyes wide with shock. "You're not dead. And you're not human anymore." "What are you?" Issei stared at her, and something in his ancient vampire blood recognized her in a way his human mind couldn't comprehend. She was pure-blooded devil nobility, descended from the original Satans themselves. His vampire instincts saw her not just as a beautiful girl, but as a worthy consort, a queen fit to stand beside a vampire king. "I don't know what I am," Issei admitted, his voice deeper and more commanding than it had ever been. "But I know I'm not going to let anyone hurt me again. And I know," he met her eyes directly, his crimson gaze holding her blue-green stare, "that you came here to make me your servant. But I'm nobody's servant anymore." Rias felt a shiver run down her spine. She had come prepared to offer this boy a new life as her pawn, maybe eventually her knight if he proved worthy. But the being standing before her now was no pawn. The power emanating from him was at least Satan class, possibly higher. And there was something about those crimson eyes that made her devil blood sing with recognition and desire. "You've awakened as a vampire," she said, trying to regain her composure. "But not a stray or a turned vampire. Your power signature is ancient. First progenitor level." "First progenitor?" Issei asked, though something in his newly awakened bloodline knowledge already knew the answer. "The original vampires," Rias explained, unable to look away from him. "They existed before the Great War between angels, devils, and fallen angels. Most were destroyed in that war, and their bloodlines were thought extinct. If you truly are one of them." She paused, her political mind racing with the implications. "You're one of the most powerful beings in the supernatural world." "Partner," Drake spoke up, "I remember now. There were 13 original vampires. They ruled the night before the biblical god led the crusade against them. 12 were destroyed. The 13th went into hiding, vowing that his bloodline would return when the time was right. It seems that time is now." Issei felt memories that weren't his own flooding into his mind. A castle that touched the clouds. A throne room where supernatural beings of all races knelt in respect and fear. A dynasty that ruled the night with absolute authority. And a name, his true name, hidden in his blood for 17 years. "Issei Haidu," he said slowly, "was just the name I wore in this human world. But my true name, my bloodline name." His eyes flashed with power, is Issei Draco, last heir of the 13th progenitor vampire dynasty. The air itself seemed to shake with the weight of that declaration. Across the supernatural world, powerful beings suddenly felt a chill run down their spines as an ancient power they thought long dead awakened once more. Rias took a step back, then caught herself. She was a Gremory, sister to one of the 4 great Satans. She would not show fear. But she would show respect. "Issei Draco," she said formally, bowing her head slightly in acknowledgement of an equal. "I am Rias Gremory, heir to the Gremory clan and sister to Surzek's Lucifer. I came here tonight to offer you resurrection and a place in my peerage. But I can see now that such an offer would be inappropriate." Issei studied her, his vampire instincts warring with the remnants of his human personality. The human part of him still saw the beautiful senpai he'd admired from afar, but the vampire part saw something more: a powerful devil princess, perfect genetics for continuing his bloodline, and a political alliance that would shake the foundations of the supernatural world. "What if I made you a different offer?" Issei heard himself say, his voice carrying a confidence and authority that his human self had never possessed. "Not servant and master, but partners. Allies." Rias looked intrigued despite herself. "What kind of alliance?" "I'm going to rebuild my dynasty," Issei declared, and he knew with absolute certainty that this was true. The blood in his veins demanded it. The vampire progenitors were nearly wiped out because they fought alone, trusted no one. "I won't make that mistake. The world has changed since the Great War. Devils, angels, and fallen angels have formed a fragile peace. Maybe it's time for vampires to return to power, but through alliances rather than conquest." "You want to form a political alliance with the Gremory clan?" Rias asked, her sharp mind already seeing the angles. An alliance with the first progenitor vampire would massively boost her family's standing, especially with her own engagement problems. "Not just political," Issei said, taking a step closer. His vampire senses could smell her interest, hear her heartbeat quicken. "You're facing an arranged marriage to Riser Phoenix, aren't you?" Rias's eyes widened in shock. "How did you? I can sense it on you." The stress, the anger, the feeling of being trapped. Issei's human memories of being rejected and used by Rainier made him sympathetic to anyone being forced into something against their will. "What if there was another option? What if you could choose your own path? What exactly are you suggesting?" Rias asked, though her heart was already racing at the implications. "Marry me instead," Issei said simply. "Not as a human boy you have to protect and guide, but as an equal. A first progenitor vampire with the boosted gear and a devil princess from one of the most powerful clans. Together, we'd be unstoppable. And you'd be free from the Phoenix." Rias stared at him for a long moment, and then to his surprise she started laughing. Not mockingly, but with genuine amusement and something else, relief, maybe even excitement. You certainly don't lack ambition, she said. Most men would be terrified to even speak to me directly. But you awaken as a vampire, discover you're basically supernatural royalty, and immediately propose marriage to a devil princess you've never even had a conversation with. Is that a no? Issei asked, some of his old nervousness creeping in. It's not a no, Rias said thoughtfully. But it's not a yes either. You may be a first progenitor, but you've been one for all of 10 minutes. You don't know how to use your powers, you don't know supernatural politics, and you don't know me. If you want me to seriously consider your proposal. She smiled, showing a hint of fang. You're going to have to court me properly. Issei found himself grinning back. I can do that. Good. Because my queen, Akino, is going to want to meet you too. And fair warning. Rias's smile turned slightly predatory. She has a thing for powerful men with dangerous auras. You might end up with more than one marriage proposal to consider. As if summoned by her name, another presence appeared. Akino Himejima stepped out of the shadows, her long black hair falling around her shoulders and her violet eyes sparkling with interest as she took in the scene. Era, Akino purred. Bucho, you didn't mention our new friend was so impressive. She walked forward, circling Issei like a cat stalking prey. A vampire progenitor and the Red Dragon Emperor combined. I can feel the power radiating from you. It's absolutely delicious. Issei's vampire senses were going haywire. If Rias smelled intoxicating, Akino was overwhelming. Her fallen angel heritage mixed with devil blood created a scent that made his fangs ache. Partner, Drake sounded amused, I believe you've gotten yourself into an interesting situation. Both of these women are extremely powerful and dangerous. The old you would have fainted from nervousness. The old me is gone, Issei thought back. And honestly? I'm okay with that. So, Akino said, standing very close to him now, I hear you're planning to rebuild a vampire dynasty. That sounds like quite the undertaking. Tell me. She traced a finger along his armored arm. Does this dynasty of yours have room for a half-fallen angel, half-devil queen who enjoys thunderstorms and handsome vampires? Akino, Rias said, but she was smiling. At least let him breathe. But Bucho, Akino said innocently, you know as well as I do that vampire lords traditionally have multiple wives. It's how they build their dynasties and power bases. And if you're seriously considering his proposal, shouldn't I be too? We've always shared everything, haven't we? Issei's head was spinning, and not just from blood loss. An hour ago he'd been a normal, perverted high school student. Now he was a vampire lord with the two most beautiful girls he'd ever met openly discussing marrying him. This is insane, he muttered. Welcome to the supernatural world, Rias said with a grin. Come on. We need to get you somewhere safe and explain what you've become. And she glanced at the sky. The sun will be up in a few hours. I assume you'd rather not test your tolerance to sunlight on your first day as a vampire. Can first progenitors even go in the sun? Issei asked. Only one way to find out, Akino said cheerfully. But maybe we should wait until you're not wearing blood-soaked clothes and standing in a public park? Issei looked down at himself and realized his uniform was completely ruined, torn and blood-stained from Rainer's attack. But the wound itself was completely healed, not even a scar remaining. Right. That's probably a good point. As Rias opened a transportation circle to take them to the Occult Research Club's building, Issei took one last look at the park fountain where he had died and been reborn. His human life had ended there, killed by a girl who saw him as nothing but a tool. But his new life as Issei Draco, first progenitor vampire and Red Dragon Emperor, was just beginning. And if Rias and Akino's reactions were anything to go by, it was going to be a hell of a ride. The Occult Research Club's building was far more luxurious than any school club had a right to be. Issei found himself sitting on a plush velvet couch while Rias poured him a glass of what looked like wine but smelled like blood. It's a blood-wine blend, Rias explained, seeing his expression. We keep it on hand for vampire visitors. Though I never expected to use it for a first progenitor. She handed him the glass. You'll need to feed soon. New vampires usually have control issues with their hunger. Issei took the glass hesitantly. His fangs were aching, and the smell of the blood wine was almost painfully tempting. He took a sip and nearly moaned at the taste. It was like every good flavor he'd ever experienced concentrated into liquid form. "That's really good," he admitted. Era, you have such an adorable expression when you're enjoying something," Aquino teased, sitting down beside him while Rias took the chair across from them. "I wonder what other expressions I could coax out of you." "Aquino, let him adjust first," Rias said, though she didn't sound particularly stern about it. "Issei, we need to discuss your situation. You're incredibly powerful right now, but also incredibly vulnerable." "Vulnerable? How?" Issei asked, setting down the glass. "Knowledge," Rias said seriously. "You have the power of a first progenitor, but you don't know how to use it properly. You don't know the politics of the supernatural world, who your enemies are, or even how to properly feed without killing someone. And there are forces out there who will want to either recruit you or destroy you the moment they learn what you are. The Church, for one," Aquino added, her expression darkening. "They've been hunting vampires for millennia. The moment they sense a first progenitor has awakened, they'll send exorcists after you. The old Satan faction might try to recruit or eliminate you," Rias continued. "The fallen angels will definitely be interested, especially after Rainer's failed attempt to steal your sacred gear. And there are other supernatural factions, gods, yokai, various monsters who all have opinions about vampires." Issei felt a chill despite his new powerful body. "So basically, I've painted a target on my back?" "A very large, very bright target," Rias confirmed. "Which is why you need allies. And training. Quickly." "She's right, partner," Drake agreed. "Power without skill is useless. We need to train you to use both your vampire abilities and your sacred gear properly. And we need to do it fast." "So what do we do?" Issei asked. Rias smiled. "We train you. Intensively. And we solidify our alliance publicly so that anyone who wants to come after you will have to go through the Gremory clan first." "And how do we do that?" "Well," Rias said, her smile turning slightly mischievous, "you did propose to me earlier. Though I think we should probably go on at least one date before we make it official." Issei felt his face heat up despite his vampire transformation. Some things didn't change, apparently. "Ah, yes. Dating. That's normal. We should do that." Aquino laughed delightedly. "Oh, Bucho, he's adorable when he's flustered. I definitely want to keep him." Aquino. "What?" "I'm just being honest." Aquino turned to Issei with a sultry smile. "And I'm being serious about the marriage proposal too. A vampire dynasty needs strong bloodlines, and I can offer both fallen angel and devil genetics. Plus," she leaned in close, her breath warm on his ear, "I think we'd be very compatible in other ways too." Issei's brain was short-circuiting. This was every perverted fantasy he'd ever had, except actually happening and somehow more overwhelming than he'd ever imagined. "I think we broke him," Rias observed with amusement. "He'll adapt," Aquino said confidently. "After all, he's going to need to get used to female attention if he plans to have multiple wives. Though I have to ask." She looked thoughtful. "How many wives were you thinking?" "Traditional vampire lords have harems, but first progenitors typically had 10 to 12 prime consorts." "I hadn't really thought that far ahead," Issei admitted. "This all happened about an hour ago." "Fair point," Rias said. "But Aquino's right that we should discuss expectations. If we're going to build a dynasty that rivals the old vampire kingdoms, you'll need political marriages to form alliances across different factions. And you'll need heirs to continue your bloodline." "Heirs," Issei repeated faintly. "Children," Aquino clarified helpfully. "Lots of them, presumably. Though don't worry, devil and vampire genetics usually result in multiples. Twins and triplets are common." Issei's mind was reeling. He'd gone from a virgin high school student to discussing having multiple wives and dozens of children in the span of 2 hours. "Partner, breathe," Drake advised. "I know this is overwhelming, but remember this is your new reality. You're not human anymore. You're a vampire lord with the power to reshape the supernatural world. These responsibilities come with that power." Issei took a deep breath and forced himself to think clearly. Drake was right. He wasn't Issei the perverted student anymore. He was Issei Draco, first progenitor vampire and red dragon emperor. If he wanted to survive in this new world, he needed to start thinking like what he'd become. Okay, he said, his voice steadier. Let's approach this logically. I need training, allies, and political legitimacy. You, he nodded to Rias, need to escape your engagement to Riser Phoenix and strengthen your clan's position. And you, he turned to Aquino, want, what exactly? Aquino's playful expression softened slightly. Freedom, she said simply. I'm Bucho's queen, but I'm also a half-breed with a fallen angel father I've never accepted. Marrying a powerful vampire lord who's building a new dynasty means I wouldn't be defined by my father or my fallen angel blood. I'd be my own person, a queen in my own right. The honesty in her voice made Issei's respect for her grow. She wasn't just flirting, she was serious. And both of us, Rias added, believe in you. Call it instinct, call it fate, but when I saw you standing in that park, covered in power and refusing to be anyone's servant, I knew you were going to change everything. I want to be part of that change. Issei felt something warm bloom in his chest. Not the hunger of his vampire nature, but genuine emotion. These two incredible women believed in him, saw potential in him that he was only beginning to understand himself. Then let's do this properly, he said decisively. I want to court you both, get to know you as people, not just as political allies. And I want you to really know me too, not just the vampire lord, but the guy underneath. If we're going to build something lasting, it should be built on more than just power and politics. Rias's smile was radiant. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Then it's settled, Aquino declared happily. We'll train you, court each other properly, and when the time is right, we'll formalize everything. But, her smile turned wicked, that doesn't mean we can't have fun during the courtship period. I do so enjoy the getting to know you phase. As the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, Issei felt the instinctive urge to seek darkness. His vampire blood was warning him that sunlight, while not necessarily lethal to a first progenitor, would be extremely uncomfortable. You can stay here, Rias offered. The club room has a basement level with rooms for club members. You'll be safe from sunlight there, and it'll give us time to figure out our next steps. Won't people ask questions? My parents, the school. Memory modification magic, Aquino said casually. We'll make everyone think you transferred to a different school or moved away. It's easier than trying to explain why a student suddenly became a vampire. It hit Issei then his old life really was over. His parents, his few friends, the normal human existence he'd known for 17 years. All of it was gone, replaced by this new supernatural reality. But as he looked at Rias and Aquino, at the promise of power, purpose, and a family of his own making, he found he didn't mourn its loss as much as he thought he would. All right, he said. Let's start building a dynasty. Outside, hidden in the shadows of the early morning, several figures watched the occult research club building with varied expressions of interest, concern, and hunger. The awakening of a first progenitor vampire had not gone unnoticed. The game had begun. The basement of the occult research club was far more luxurious than Issei had expected. What should have been a dark, musty storage area had been transformed into something resembling a high-end apartment, complete with multiple bedrooms, a full bathroom with a shower that could fit 4 people, and a common area with furniture that probably cost more than his parents' entire house. Devils don't do anything halfway, Rias explained as she showed him around. This is where club members can stay if they need to, though usually it's just been Aquino and me using it for late-night study sessions or when we're too tired to go home. And now you, Aquino added, appearing behind him so suddenly that even his vampire senses barely caught her movement. Don't worry, we made sure to get a coffin installed for you. Issei's eyes widened in alarm. A coffin? I have to sleep in a coffin? Both girls burst out laughing at his expression. She's joking, Rias said, wiping tears from her eyes. First progenitor vampires don't need coffins. That's a myth perpetuated by lesser vampires and humans. You can sleep in a regular bed like anyone else, though you will need blackout curtains and probably want to sleep during the day. You're both terrible, Issei muttered, but he couldn't help smiling. Despite the insanity of the last few hours, there was something comfortable about their teasing. It felt normal, even friendly. Now then, Rias said, her expression turning serious. It's nearly dawn. You should rest for today and let your body finish adjusting to the transformation. Tonight, we begin your training in earnest, but first. She gestured to one of the bedrooms. You need to feed properly. Issei's stomach clenched with sudden hunger at the mention of feeding. The blood wine had helped, but his vampire instincts were screaming that he needed more, needed fresh blood, needed to hunt. I can see it in your eyes, Aquino said softly, stepping closer. The hunger. It's consuming you, isn't it? New vampires often lose control during their first feeding. They drain their victims dry, unable to stop themselves. I won't, Issei started to protest, but even he could hear the desperation in his voice. Which is why we're here to help, Rias interrupted. Issei, you need to feed from a living source. Blood wine can sustain you, but to truly master your vampire nature, you need to learn control. And the best way to do that is with a willing donor who can stop you if necessary. Issei looked between them, realization dawning. You mean, we mean us, Aquino confirmed, her violet eyes gleaming. Devil blood is highly compatible with vampire feeding, and we're both powerful enough to handle the experience. Plus, she smiled, it's said that drinking from one's intended bride creates a bond that strengthens both parties. A blood bond, Rias explained. It's an ancient vampire tradition. When a vampire lord drinks from his consort willingly offered, it creates a connection that allows them to sense each other's emotions, share power, and even communicate mentally over long distances. Most vampire dynasties were built on these bonds. Issei's human mind was screaming that this was too fast, too intimate, too everything. But his vampire instincts recognized the wisdom and the rightness of it. These women were offering themselves not just as political allies, but as true partners. Refusing would be an insult to their trust. Are you sure? He asked quietly. Both of you? Absolutely, Rias said firmly. She walked to the bedroom and gestured for him to follow. Come. Let's do this properly. The bedroom was dominated by a massive four-poster bed that could easily sleep 5 people. Deep red curtains hung from the posts, and the blackout shades were already drawn, creating an intimate darkness broken only by softly glowing magical lights. Rias sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her long crimson hair to one side, exposing the elegant curve of her neck. The traditional feeding spot, she explained. The throat is where the blood flows strongest, and where the bond forms deepest. Issei approached slowly, his vampire nature surging forward with barely controlled hunger. Up close, Rias's scent was overwhelming, power, nobility, and something uniquely her that made his fangs ache with need. How do I? He started to ask. Trust your instincts, Aquino advised from beside him. Your vampire nature knows what to do. Just remember, you're feeding, not killing. Take what you need, but stop before she weakens too much. We'll tell you when. Issei knelt beside Rias, his hand coming up to gently cup her shoulder. She was warm beneath his touch, her pulse visible beneath the pale skin of her throat. Every beat called to him like a drum. Issei, Rias said softly, meeting his crimson eyes with her blue-green gaze. I trust you. We're doing this together, as partners. Don't be afraid. Something in her words steadied him. He leaned in slowly, his lips brushing against her throat first, feeling her pulse quicken. Then, guided by instincts thousands of years old, his fangs extended and pierced her skin. The first taste of Rias's blood exploded across his senses like lightning. It wasn't just blood, it was liquid power, centuries of pure-blooded devil lineage distilled into each drop. He could taste her heritage, feel the weight of the Gremory name, sense the power of destruction that was her birthright. But more than that, he could feel her determination, her loneliness, her desire to break free from the chains of obligation and forge her own path. Rias gasped, her hands gripping his shoulders as the blood bond began to form. She could feel him too, his confusion and newborn power, the human memories warring with vampire instincts, and underneath it all, a core of genuine kindness that had survived the transformation. He's perfect, she thought, and felt him hear it through their forming connection. You're amazing, he responded mentally, his thoughts bleeding through to her as surely as her blood flowed into him. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and suddenly they were connected on a level that went beyond physical. Rias could feel his hunger satisfying, the power of her blood strengthening his new vampire body, could feel the exact moment when he'd taken enough. Now, she whispered aloud, and immediately Issei pulled back, his fangs retracting. 2 small puncture wounds marked her throat, already healing thanks to her devil regeneration. Issei licked his lips, tasting the last of her blood, and his eyes were practically glowing with power. That was... He couldn't find words. Incredible, Rias finished for him, slightly breathless. I can feel you now. In my mind, my heart. This is what a true blood bond feels like. My turn, Aquino said, her voice husky. She moved to take Rias's place on the bed, but instead of sitting sedately, she reclined back against the pillows, her head tilted to expose her throat in a pose that was undeniably seductive. Come, Issei-kun. Let me feel what Bucho just experienced. If Rias's blood had been lightning, Aquino's was thunder and storm and barely controlled chaos. Her fallen angel heritage mixed with her devil blood created a flavor that was addictive and dangerous. Issei could taste the pain of her past, her rejection of her father, her fierce loyalty to Rias, and her hidden desire to be seen as more than just someone's daughter or someone's queen. I see you, Issei thought through their forming bond. Aquino Himejima. Not half fallen angel, not half devil. Just Aquino. And you're magnificent. He felt her sharp intake of breath, felt tears prick at her eyes even as pleasure from the feeding washed through her. No one had ever said that to her before. Everyone always focused on her heritage, her power, her usefulness. But Issei saw her. When he pulled back, Aquino's arms wrapped around him, pulling him down onto the bed beside her. Thank you, she whispered against his hair. Thank you for seeing me. Rias joined them on the bed, and suddenly Issei found himself in the middle of a pile of beautiful, powerful women who were now bonded to him on a level most people never experienced in their entire lives. Well, Rias said with a satisfied smile, I'd say that went well. How do you feel? Issei took stock of himself. The gnawing hunger was gone, replaced by a sense of fullness and strength. But more than that, he could feel both of them now. Rias as a warm presence in the back of his mind, steady and determined, Aquino as a crackling energy, playful but with hidden depths. I feel complete, he said honestly. Like part of me was missing and I didn't know it until now. That's the blood bond, Aquino explained, though she made no move to let him go. We're connected now. Not mind reading exactly, but emotional sensing. If one of us is in danger, the others will know. If we're separated, we can find each other. And, she smiled wickedly, if one of us is feeling particularly passionate, the others will definitely sense it. Issei felt his face heat up. That could be awkward, or exciting, Rias countered. Vampire lords and their consorts traditionally have very active relationships. The blood bond enhances everything, emotions, physical sensations, pleasure. Bucho, you're making him blush, Aquino teased. Though I have to admit, he's adorable when he's flustered. I'm a powerful vampire lord who just awakened ancient bloodline powers, Issei protested weakly. I'm supposed to be intimidating, not adorable. You can be both women said simultaneously, then laughed at the synchronization. As they lay there in the comfortable darkness, Issei marveled at how quickly his life had changed. Yesterday he'd been a lonely virgin who'd just been killed by his girlfriend. Today he was a vampire lord with 2 incredible women bonded to him, planning to build a dynasty. Partner, Drake's voice rumbled through his mind, I must admit, when I was sealed in this sacred gear, I never expected to be part of this. But I approve. These women are worthy mates for a dragon emperor. And the blood bond allows me to share power with them as well. Interesting. Can they hear you? Issei thought back. Now they can. The blood bond connected us all. Ladies, I am Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. I look forward to working with you both. Did the dragon just introduce himself telepathically? Aquino asked, her eyes wide. I think he did, Rias confirmed, sounding equally surprised but delighted. This bond is even more powerful than I thought. We're not just connected to Issei, we're connected to his sacred gear as well, which means my power is now shared between the 3 of you, Drake explained. In battle you will be able to draw on the boosted gear's abilities through the bond. This is unprecedented. We've essentially created a 3-person balance breaker. That's going to make the rating game against Riser very interesting, Rias mused. Issei felt a surge of protective rage through the bond at the mention of Riser Phoenix, Rias's unwanted fiancé. Tell me about him, he said, his voice dropping to a growl. Tell me about the bastard who thinks he can claim what's mine. Both women shivered at the possessiveness in his tone. The vampire lord was emerging, and he was not pleased about rival suitors. Riser Phoenix is the 3rd son of the Phoenix clan, Rias explained, settling more comfortably against his side. He's arrogant, lecherous, and has a full peerage of 15 women who he treats as a harem rather than valued servants. He believes that because our families arranged an engagement when we were children, I belong to him. He challenged Bucho to a rating game, Aquino added, her voice tight with anger. If she loses, the engagement becomes official and she has to marry him. If she wins, she can break the engagement. But Riser is a mature devil with decades of experience, and we've only recently graduated from school. The game is rigged against us. When is it? Issei asked. 10 days from now, Rias said quietly. I was planning to resign rather than lose to him and give my family shame. But now... She looked up at Issei, hope in her eyes. Now we have you, a first progenitor vampire bonded to me. That changes everything. Damn right it does, Issei said firmly. I'm going to rip that peacock apart. There's just one problem, Aquino said. You don't know how to fight yet. You have power, but no control. No technique. No strategy. We have 10 days to turn you from a newly awakened vampire into a warrior capable of facing a mature devil in combat. Then we better get started, Issei said. What's the plan? Rias sat up, her strategic mind already working. First, you sleep today and let the blood bond settle. Tonight, we begin combat training. I'll teach you how to use your power of destruction. Yes, you inherited that through the blood bond, and Aquino will drill you in lightning magic and close combat. We'll also need to work on your vampire abilities, speed, strength, regeneration, and blood manipulation. And Drake's powers, Aquino added. The boosted gear is one of the 13 Longinus, the strongest sacred gears in existence. Learning to properly use Balance Breaker will be crucial. I can guide him through that, Drake confirmed. But the ladies are right, he needs to master his vampire nature first. The boosted gear will amplify whatever power he uses. If he doesn't have control, he'll just be amplifying chaos. We should also announce your existence strategically, Rias continued. If we reveal you as my fiancé and bonded vampire consort at the right moment, it will throw Riser off balance. He's expecting to fight a weak peerage led by an inexperienced king. He's not expecting to face a first progenitor. Plus, Aquino said with a wicked smile, the look on his face when he realizes you're bonded to both of us will be priceless. He's so proud of his harem of servants. Wait until he sees that you have actual willing consorts of royal blood. Issei couldn't help but grin at that. Sounds like a plan. So we train for 10 days, I learn to control my powers, and then we make Riser Phoenix regret ever thinking he could claim either of you. That's the plan, Rias confirmed. She leaned in and kissed his cheek, a soft gesture that made his heart race. Thank you, Issei, for choosing to stand with us. For seeing us as more than political assets. For everything. Thank you for giving me a reason to embrace what I've become, Issei replied. I could have woken up as a vampire and been completely lost. But you too, you gave me purpose. A family to build. Something worth fighting for. Aquino kissed his other cheek. So sentimental. I think we chose well, Bucho. I think we did too, Rias agreed. The three of them lay back down, Issei in the middle with a beautiful woman on each side, their blood bond humming with contentment. Outside, the sun was rising on a new day. But down here in the darkness, three beings who would change the supernatural world forever rested together. 1 week later, the training had been brutal. Issei stood in the middle of the ORC's private training ground, a pocket dimension that Rias maintained specifically for practicing destructive magic, his body covered in sweat and minor wounds that were already healing thanks to his vampire regeneration. Across from him, Rias and Aquino stood ready, both breathing hard but far from defeated. They'd been sparring for 6 hours straight. Again, Issei growled, his crimson eyes glowing in the dim light. Red and black energy crackled around his left arm as the boosted gear counted up its multiplier. Boost! 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 He moved, and the world blurred. Vampire speed combined with dragon-enhanced power turned him into a crimson streak that crossed the 100-meter distance in a fraction of a second. His fist, wrapped in power of destruction inherited through the blood bond, aimed for Rias's center mass. But Rias had been training far longer than a week. She spun aside, her own power of destruction forming a blade that sliced toward his extended arm. Simultaneously, Akino's lightning crashed down from above, a pincer attack that would have fried a lesser being. Issei twisted mid-strike, using vampire agility to contort his body impossibly, dodging Rias's destruction blade by millimeters while bringing up his right hand. Blood, his own blood, erupted from his palm, forming a shield that absorbed Akino's lightning and then exploded outward in a spray of superheated droplets. Blood manipulation. Rias called out approvingly, dodging the deadly spray. Good. You're finally learning to think three-dimensionally. Issei landed in a crouch, already preparing his next move. His week of training had been split between morning combat drills with Rias and Akino, afternoon strategy sessions where they studied recordings of Riser's previous raiding games, and evening meditation to strengthen the blood bond and learn to share power more efficiently. The results were showing. He was nowhere near a master yet, but he was no longer the clumsy newborn vampire who'd tripped over his own enhanced speed. Now he could fight, could strategize, could hold his own against two experienced devils working together. One more round, Issei said, standing up. I can do better. You've already surpassed my expectations, Rias said, lowering her power. A week ago, you didn't even know how to throw a proper punch. Now you're forcing me and Akino to work together to keep up. At this rate, Riser won't know what hit him. Literally, Akino added with a giggle. I can't wait to see his face when you move faster than he can track. Partner, your progress has been remarkable, Drake grumbled. But don't get overconfident. Riser Phoenix has decades of combat experience, and near-immortal regeneration thanks to his Phoenix flames. This will not be an easy fight. I know, Issei thought back. But I have something he doesn't. I have people I'm fighting for, not people I'm fighting with. That makes all the difference. Come on, Rias said, walking over and taking his hand. We've been training non-stop. Let's take a break and grab dinner. You need to feed again anyway. I can feel your hunger through the bond. Issei realized she was right. His vampire nature demanded regular feeding, and while he could sustain himself on blood wine, the bond between them meant that feeding from his consorts not only sated his hunger but strengthened all three of them. They returned to the ORC building and settled into the comfortable routine they'd developed over the past week. Rias and Akino took turns cooking. Both were surprisingly domestic when they wanted to be. They'd eat together while discussing strategy, and then Issei would feed from them in turns before they all retired to rest. What had started as a purely practical arrangement had become something more intimate. The blood bond meant they could feel each other's emotions constantly, creating a level of understanding and connection that normal couples took years to develop. They knew each other's fears, hopes, and dreams as if they were their own. I got a message from my brother today, Rias said as they ate. He wants to meet you before the raiding game. Issei nearly choked on his food. Sirzek's Lucifer wants to meet me? One of the four great Satans? He's protective of me, Rias explained. When I told him I'd bonded with the first progenitor vampire, and was planning to break my engagement to Riser, he naturally wanted to verify that you're not using me or that I haven't been mind-controlled. Can he sense that through, I don't know, Satan powers? Issei asked nervously. He can, Akino assured him. But he wants to meet you in person anyway. It's a brother thing. Plus, I think he's actually excited. He never liked the Phoenix engagement. When does he want to meet? Tomorrow evening, Rias said. Don't worry, I'll be there. And honestly, if you can impress Sirzek, having the personal approval of a Satan will massively strengthen our political position. Issei took a deep breath. Meeting one of the four great Satans, the leaders of all devil kind. No pressure at all. Look at it this way, partner, Drake said. If you can face down a Satan and live, Riser Phoenix will seem less intimidating. That's not actually comforting. I know. But I tried. The next evening, Sirzek's Lucifer was not what Issei expected. He'd imagined some stern, intimidating figure radiating absolute authority. Instead, the man who appeared in the ORC building looked like an older, male version of Rias with the same crimson hair and similar facial features. He was smiling warmly, and seemed more like a friendly older brother than the leader of all devils. At least, until Issei met his eyes and felt the absolutely crushing weight of power behind them. This being could unmake him with a thought, and they both knew it. So Sirzek said pleasantly, looking Issei up and down, "You're the vampire who's stolen my little sister's heart. And her blood, apparently." His smile didn't waver, but his power flared just slightly. "I want you to know that if you hurt her, there is no place in any realm where you can hide from me. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, sir," Issei said, meeting the Satan's gaze despite every instinct screaming at him to look away. "But I have no intention of hurting her. Or Akino. They're my consorts, my partners. I'd die before I let anyone, including myself, harm them." Sirzek studied him for a long moment, and Issei felt power pressing against his mind, testing his sincerity. Then the Satan smiled, and the oppressive pressure vanished as if it had never been. "Good answer. And I can sense you're telling the truth, the blood bond doesn't lie." He walked over and clapped Issei on the shoulder with surprising force. "Welcome to the family, little brother. Anyone who can make my Ria smile like she has been this week is fine by me." "Oniai-sama," Rias protested, blushing. "Don't call me that in front of him." "Why not?" "It's cute," Sirzek said innocently, then turned back to Issei. "So, a first progenitor vampire with the boosted gear. That's quite the combination. Have you awakened the balance breaker yet?" "We've been working on it," Issei admitted. "I can feel it there, just out of reach. Drake says I need one more push, one moment of extreme need, and it'll manifest fully. The raiding game against Riser should provide that," Sirzek mused. "Which brings me to why I'm really here." His expression turned serious. "The Phoenix clan is politically powerful, and breaking the engagement will have consequences. I need to know you're prepared for that. There will be challenges, possibly assassination attempts, other noble families who see you as a threat. Are you ready for that?" "I'm ready," Issei said firmly. "I didn't choose to become a vampire, but I'm choosing what I do with that power. Building a dynasty, protecting my consorts, facing down anyone who threatens us, that's my choice. I'm all in." Sirzek nodded approvingly. "Then let me give you some advice, first progenitor to Satan. The supernatural world respects power, but it fears power without control. You're young, newly awakened, and already threatening centuries of established order. That makes you dangerous. So be smart about it. Build alliances carefully. Show strength, but also show wisdom. Prove that you're not just a powerful monster, but a leader worth following." "That's what I'm trying to do," Issei said. "That's why the blood bonds, why I'm learning politics alongside combat training. I want to build something that lasts, not just destroy and conquer." "Good." Sirzek looked at his sister. "Rias, you've chosen well. I give you my full support. And Issei," he extended his hand, "you have an ally in me. If you ever need help, call. We family now." Issei shook his hand, feeling the immense power in that grip and the genuine warmth behind it. "Thank you. That means everything. Now then," Sirzek said, his playful demeanor returning, "tell me about this dynasty you're planning. How many wives are you thinking? Because traditional vampire lords had 10 to 12, but I've heard of some having as many as 20. Oniai-sama." Rias protested again, even more flustered. The evening devolved into surprisingly normal family conversation, with Sirzek telling embarrassing stories about young Rias while Aquino laughed, and Issei learned that even the most powerful beings in the supernatural world were still people underneath. By the time Sirzek left, Issei felt both relieved and energized. He had the approval of a Satan. Now he just needed to prove he deserved it. 3 days before the raiding game. "There's something I need to tell you both," Issei said as they finished another training session. Rias and Aquino looked at him curiously, sensing through the blood bond that he was nervous about something. "I want to make our engagement official before the raiding game," Issei said. "Not the wedding itself, we should do that properly, with ceremony and celebration. But I want Riser and everyone else to know that you're both spoken for, that you're my consorts and I'm your vampire lord. I want there to be no doubt. A formal declaration, Rias said thoughtfully. That's actually perfect timing. If we announce it right before the raiding game, Riser won't have time to prepare a counter-strategy. He'll be off balance. Plus, Aquino added with a mischievous smile, announcing that Bucho's vampire consort is also bonded to her queen will make quite the statement. It shows we're not his typical harem situation. We're a true family unit. I have something for you both, Issei said, reaching into his pocket. He'd spent the last 3 days working on this in secret, using blood magic and vampire crafting techniques that his awakened bloodline knowledge provided. He pulled out 2 rings, each one crafted from solidified vampire blood, his blood, mixed with crimson crystals that pulsed with power. They looked like rubies set in platinum, but were actually far more valuable. Blood oath rings, Rias breathed, recognizing them instantly. Issei, these are priceless. The amount of power and skill needed to craft them. My bloodline knowledge helped, Issei admitted. But I wanted you to have something that was truly mine. These rings are linked to me, to our blood bond. If you're ever in danger, I'll know instantly, and they'll provide protection, channeling my power to shield you. He took Rias's hand first, sliding the ring onto her finger. It resized automatically, fitting perfectly. Rias Gremory, will you formally accept me as your consort and future husband? Yes, Rias said softly, tears shining in her eyes. 1,000 times yes. He turned to Aquino and repeated the gesture. Aquino Himejima, will you formally accept me as your consort and future husband? Absolutely, Aquino said, her voice thick with emotion. Now and forever. The moment both rings were in place, the blood bond flared with power, solidifying and strengthening. It was no longer just a feeding connection, it was a true soul bond, the kind that lasted beyond death itself. Well done, partner, Drake rumbled approvingly. You've just performed an ancient vampire bonding ritual. These 2 women are now your consorts in every magical and legal sense. Breaking this bond would require power on par with a god. I can feel it, Rias said, staring at her ring. The bond is so much stronger now. I can sense your power, your presence, as if you're part of my soul. Because I am, Issei said. And you're both part of mine. Whatever comes next, the raiding game, building the dynasty, all of it, we face it together. Together, Aquino agreed, pulling both of them into a hug. They stayed like that for a long moment, 3 beings bound by blood and magic and something deeper, genuine affection that had grown over their intense week together. We should rest, Rias finally said. The announcement is tomorrow, and the raiding game is in 3 days. We need to be ready. That night, as they lay together in their shared bed, an arrangement that had become comfortable and natural over the week, Issei reflected on how much his life had changed. 2 weeks ago, he'd been killed by a girl who saw him as nothing but a tool. Now he had 2 incredible women who saw him as a partner, a dragon that respected him, and the power to reshape the world. The raiding game would be his first real test. But with Rias and Aquino by his side, he was ready for whatever came next. The announcement. The Gremory family manor was packed with supernatural nobility. Devils from across the underworld had gathered for what was supposed to be a pre-raiding game celebration for Riser Phoenix's upcoming victory and marriage to Rias Gremory. Riser himself stood in the center of attention, surrounded by his 15-piece peerage of women who fawned over him. He was exactly as arrogant as Issei had imagined, blonde hair styled perfectly, expensive suit, and a smirk that suggested he'd never been told no in his entire life. Soon, Rias will be mine, Riser was saying loudly to a group of admiring nobles. The raiding game is a formality. Everyone knows she cannot defeat me, and once we're married, I'll teach that proud Gremory princess the proper place for a wife. Several of his peerage giggled at that, but Issei noticed some of them looked uncomfortable. Not all of Riser's servants were happy with their situation. Then it's a good thing she won't be marrying you, Issei said, stepping out of the shadows with Rias on one arm and Aquino on the other. The entire room fell silent. Riser turned, his smirk faltering as he took in the sight. Rias and Aquino wore matching crimson dresses that marked them as bonded consorts, and their new rings glittered on their fingers. Issei stood between them in a black suit with red accents, his crimson eyes glowing faintly with power. Who are you? Riser demanded, his power flaring with irritation. I am Issei Drackle, Issei said clearly, his voice carrying through the silent room. Last heir of the 13th progenitor Vampire dynasty, wielder of the boosted gear, and consort to Rias Gremory and Akino Himejima. And you, Riser Phoenix, are trespassing on what's mine. The room exploded into shocked whispers. A first progenitor? Bonded to 2 members of Rias's peerage? This changed everything. Impossible, Riser sputtered, his face going red. Rias is my fiancé. We have a contract. Had a contract, Rias corrected coldly. Which was made when I was a child and had no say in the matter. I have since exercised my right to challenge that contract through rating game, and I have chosen my own consort. The vampire lord standing beside me is my chosen partner, and the blood bond we share is recognized by every supernatural law in existence. Butcho and I are both bonded to him, Akino added sweetly. Which means any attack on either of us is an attack on a first progenitor vampire. Just thought you should know before the rating game. Riser looked like he was going to explode. His phoenix flames started to leak out, scorching the floor beneath his feet. This is an insult. You dare. I dare, Issei interrupted, stepping forward. His vampire aura exploded outward, mixing with Drake's dragon power to create a pressure that made even some of the older devils step back. You think you can claim Rias because of some contract made by your parents? I claim her because she chose me, because we've bonded on a level you couldn't possibly understand. If you want her, you're going to have to go through me. And I promise you, Phoenix boy, you're not that strong. Boost! 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 The boosted gear counted up rapidly, multiplying Issei's already immense power. The air itself began to crack under the pressure. The rating game will prove who's stronger, Riser finally managed to say, though his voice shook slightly. 3 days from now, I'll destroy you and take back what's mine. She was never yours, Issei said coldly. But sure, let's settle this in the rating game. I'll enjoy making you regret every arrogant word you've ever spoken. Lord and Lady Gremory chose that moment to intervene, Rias's parents stepping between the 2 groups before actual violence could break out. But the damage was done. The challenge had been issued and accepted publicly. There was no backing down now. As they left the manor, Rias squeezed Issei's hand. That was incredibly satisfying, she admitted. Did you see his face? I recorded it, Akino said happily, holding up her phone. I'm going to watch this every day forever. Issei laughed despite the tension. 3 days until we make him regret everything. Are we ready? We're ready, both women said together. And through their blood bond, Issei could feel their absolute confidence in him, in themselves, in what they'd built together over the past 2 weeks. The rating game couldn't come fast enough. The rating game arena materialized around them in a shimmer of magical energy, a perfect replica of their school campus, chosen as neutral ground by the adjudicators. Issei stood in the center of what would have been the old school building, Rias to his right and Akino to his left, their blood bond humming with shared determination. Through the magical communication system, Riser's arrogant voice echoed across the arena. I hope you said your goodbyes, Rias. After I crush your little vampire pet, you'll finally accept your place as my wife. Issei felt rage surge through the blood bond, not his own, but Rias's, amplified by their connection. He placed a calming hand on her shoulder, sending waves of reassurance through their link. Let him talk, Issei said quietly. In 10 minutes, he'll be eating those words along with his teeth. Akino giggled, electricity crackling between her fingers. So violent. I love it. The announcement came. Rating game between Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix. Begin. Issei closed his eyes, extending his vampire senses across the entire campus. He could smell 15 different signatures from Riser's peerage, spread out in strategic positions. He could hear their heartbeats, sense their power levels, track their movements. They're using a standard defensive formation, he reported. Riser's in the main building with his queen and bishop. His rooks are guarding the gymnasium and pool. Knights are mobile between positions. Pawns are scattered as scouts. How can you possibly know all that? Came Riser's confused voice through the communication system. Vampire senses, Issei replied with a smirk. I can track every single one of your pieces by heartbeat alone. You're going to lose, Riser. The only question is how badly you want to be humiliated. Partner, I'm detecting 3 other presences in the arena, Drake suddenly announced. They're not part of either peerage. Observers, maybe? But their power signatures are. Interesting. Issei frowned, extending his senses further. Drake was right. There were 3 others here. One smelled of churches and holy power, one of cats and yokai magic, and one of pure faith and healing light. Store that information for later, Issei thought. Right now, we have a peacock to pluck. Akino, Rias, let's show them what a blood-bonded team can do, Issei said aloud. Formation Crimson Storm. They practiced this maneuver for days. All 3 of them activated their powers simultaneously. Issei's vampire speed, Rias's power of destruction, and Akino's lightning magic. But instead of 3 separate attacks, the blood bond allowed them to merge their powers into a single devastating combination. Issei moved first, becoming a crimson blur that crossed half the campus in 2 seconds. 3 of Riser's pawns barely had time to scream before he was among them, his hands crackling with combined destruction and lightning energy. He didn't even need to touch them. The proximity alone was enough to overload their defenses. 3 pawns of Riser Phoenix. Retired. What? Riser's shocked voice crackled through the arena. That's impossible. They were too slow, Issei finished, already moving toward the gymnasium where one of Riser's rooks was stationed. Your formation assumes your enemies will play defensively. But we're not defending. We're hunting. The rook, a large woman with massive gauntlets, tried to mount a defense, but Rias appeared beside Issei in a flash of crimson light, teleported through their bond connection, her power of destruction forming a massive sphere. This is for every time Riser called me his property, Rias said coldly, and released the sphere. The explosion consumed half the gymnasium. Rook of Riser Phoenix. Retired. Impossible! Riser screamed. You can't teleport your pieces without a proper formation circle. The blood bond says otherwise, Akino's voice came from above. She'd used the confusion to fly to a perfect vantage point above the school's main building. And now, let me show you what happens when you underestimate a woman's wrath. Fallen Angel Mode. Black wings of a fallen angel erupted from Akino's back as she finally embraced her heritage fully. Lightning, not normal lightning, but the purple-black lightning of fallen angels, began to gather in the storm clouds above her. Akino, Rias whispered, feeling through the bond her queen's emotional breakthrough. She's finally accepting it. Because she knows we accept her, Issei said. All of her. Now let's give her the support she needs. Through the blood bond, Issei and Rias channeled their power into Akino. Vampire vitality, dragon might, and devil destruction poured into her, amplifying her fallen angel lightning into something the supernatural world had never seen before. Holy lightning! Akino screamed, and purple-black bolts mixed with golden holy energy crashed down across the campus. 2 knights of Riser Phoenix. Retired. 1 bishop of Riser Phoenix. Retired. 4 pawns of Riser Phoenix. Retired. In less than 3 minutes, Riser's peerage of 15 had been reduced to 5, himself, his queen, 1 rook, and 2 bishops. The supernatural world watching through magical broadcasts was in complete shock. This isn't a raiding game, one commentator whispered. This is an execution. In the shadows of the arena's edge, 3 figures watched with varied expressions of awe. Asia Argento, the exiled nun with the sacred gear Twilight Healing, clutched her hands together in prayer. Such power, but I can feel no evil from them. How is that possible? Kaneko Tuju, the Nekashu who'd been hiding her true nature, felt her instincts going wild. That vampire's scent called to her predatory nature in ways she didn't understand. Strong, she whispered, so strong. Zenobia Corda, wielder of the holy sword Durandal, gripped her blade tightly. A vampire this powerful should be evil, should be corrupted. But his aura... She shook her head in confusion. It's almost... noble. Pure even. This contradicts everything the church taught me. Back in the arena, Riser was panicking. He'd retreated to the top of the main building with his remaining pieces, his phoenix flames forming a defensive barrier. This is cheating, he shouted. That bond isn't natural. It's perfectly legal. Surzek's Lucifer's voice came through the communication system. As one of the adjudicators, he was loving every second of this. The blood bond is an ancient and recognized magical contract. Rias Gremory and Akino Himejima are fighting as part of a bonded unit with their vampire consort. There's no rule against it. Then I forfeit. Riser declared desperately. No forfeits allowed once combat has begun, another adjudicator announced. You issued the challenge, Lord Phoenix. You must see it through to retirement, or victory. Issei landed on the rooftop, Rias and Akino flanking him seconds later. The three of them stood as one, power radiating from them like a physical force. It's over, Riser, Rias said. Surrender with dignity, or we'll take it from you by force. Never! Riser's flames exploded outward in a desperate attack. His queen and remaining pieces joined in, throwing everything they had at the trio. That's when it happened. Issei felt the balance breaker straining at its limits, felt Drake's power combining with his vampire nature and the blood bond in a way that shouldn't be possible. The boosted gear began counting faster than ever before. Boost! 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 Partner, it's time! Drake roared. Balance breaker, Crimson Blood Dragon Emperor. Armor exploded across Issei's body, but it wasn't the standard red and green of the Welsh dragon. This armor was deep crimson and black, with veins of power running through it like corrupted circuitry. Dragon wings of solid blood crystal erupted from his back, and his helmet formed with a crown of vampire nobility fused to dragon horns. But more than that, through the blood bond, partial armor formed on Rias and Akino as well. Gauntlets, chest pieces, and wing fragments that connected them all in a triangle of power. Trinity Balance Breaker! The three of them shouted together, their voices overlapping. Crimson Blood Dragon Dynasty! The power that erupted from them was biblical. Riser's flames, his queen's attacks, his remaining pieces' desperate assault, all of it was consumed by the sheer overwhelming force of three souls bonded as one, amplified by the boosted gear and filtered through vampire, devil, and fallen angel power. When the light cleared, Riser and his entire remaining peerage lay unconscious on the rooftop, their bodies smoking from the overwhelming attack. All remaining pieces of Riser Phoenix retired. Winner, Rias Gremory. The arena dissolved, returning them to the Gremory family manor where the supernatural nobility had gathered to watch. The room was dead silent, every single being staring at the three figures still wrapped in fading armor. Then Surzex started clapping, and the room erupted into chaos. That was incredible, a Trinity Balance Breaker. I've never seen anything like it. The Vampire Lord is terrifying. Did you see how fast he moved? Issei let the armor fade, pulling Rias and Akino into a tight embrace. Through the blood bond, he could feel their exhaustion, their exhilaration, their overwhelming relief. We did it, Rias whispered. We actually did it. Of course we did, Akino said with a tired laugh. We're a dynasty, remember? Nothing can stop us. Lord and Lady Gremory approached, both looking stunned but pleased. Rias, her father said formally, on behalf of the Gremory clan, I officially recognize your bond with Issei Drakel and dissolve your engagement to Riser Phoenix. You've proven yourself far beyond any expectation. Thank you, Father, Rias said, bowing respectfully. And you, Lord Drakel, Lady Gremory said with a warm smile, you've protected our daughter and restored honor to our name. The Gremory clan is in your debt. No debt needed, Issei replied. Rias is my consort. Protecting her is my duty and my joy. As the celebration began around them, Issei sensed those three presences from before approaching. He turned to see three young women making their way through the crowd, a blonde nun in modified church attire, a petite white-haired girl with cat-like features barely visible, and a blue-haired woman carrying a massive sword wrapped in cloth. Excuse me, the blonde said nervously, her green eyes wide with wonder. I'm Asia Argento. I watched your battle. It was amazing. I've never seen holy and unholy power work together so beautifully. Kaneko Tuju, the white-haired girl said simply. You're strong. I want to learn from you. Zenobia Corda, the swordsman said formally. I'm a church exorcist, and I should probably try to kill you since you're a vampire. But, she looked confused, you don't feel evil. In fact, you feel more righteous than half the priests I know. It's very confusing. Issei couldn't help but laugh at Zenovia's blunt honesty. Well, I appreciate you not trying to kill me. What brings 3 such interesting women to watch a raiding game? We were invited by Sirzex Lucifer, Asia explained. He said we might want to see something that would change our perspectives on the supernatural world. And he was right, Zenobia added. A vampire who fights with honor, uses holy power without being destroyed, and protects his consorts like a true knight. You've contradicted everything I thought I knew. Through the blood bond, Issei felt Rias and Aquino's amusement and interest. They're attracted to you, Rias said mentally. All 3 of them. I can tell. Is that okay? Issei thought back, confused. Issei, Aquino sent with exasperation and fondness, you're a vampire lord building a dynasty. Of course you'll attract strong women, and all 3 of these women are exactly the kind of allies and potential consorts we'll need. Wait, you're suggesting? We're suggesting you get to know them, Rias clarified. If natural bonds form, we'll support it. Remember, 10 to 12 consorts is traditional for a first progenitor. Aquino and I can't build an entire dynasty alone. Issei looked back at the 3 women, seeing them with new eyes. Asia with her healing sacred gear and pure heart. Kaneko with her hidden Nekashu power and desire for strength. Zenobia with her holy sword and unwavering sense of justice. Partner, Drake rumbled with amusement, your life just got a lot more complicated. And interesting. You're telling me. How about this? Issei said aloud. We're having a celebration dinner tonight at the Occult Research Club. Why don't you 3 join us? We can talk, get to know each other, and maybe answer some of those questions you have about vampires and the supernatural world. Asia's face lit up with joy. Really? We can come? Sounds interesting, Kaneko said, though her usual stoic expression barely changed. I accept, Zenobia declared. I have many questions about how you can wield holy power as a vampire. It shouldn't be possible. Then it's settled, Rias said warmly. The more the merrier. As the celebration continued around them, Issei felt the future shifting. 3 more women had entered his life, each one powerful and unique. And if Rias and Aquino were right about the attraction, building a dynasty was going to be more complicated than he thought. But looking at the 5 women now in his orbit, he couldn't find it in himself to complain. That evening, the Occult Research Club. The dinner had started formally but quickly devolved into comfortable conversation. Asia was fascinated by everything, asking 100 questions about Devil Society, vampire culture, and how the blood bond worked. Kaneko ate with focused intensity while occasionally asking pointed questions about combat techniques. Zenobia interrogated Issei about theology, and how his vampire nature interacted with holy power. It shouldn't work, Zenobia insisted for the 3rd time. Vampires are creatures of darkness. Holy power should burn you to ash. First progenitor vampires aren't creatures of darkness, Issei explained patiently. We're creatures of blood. There's a difference. We're not undead, we're very much alive, just evolved beyond humanity. Holy power only destroys corruption and undeath. Since I'm neither, it doesn't affect me. That's actually theologically sound, Zenobia admitted reluctantly. But it means everything the church taught me about vampires is wrong. Not wrong, Rias corrected. Just incomplete. Lesser vampires, those turned by force or corruption, are vulnerable to holy power because they're created through dark magic. But first progenitors are natural beings, created before the concept of holy and unholy even existed. Asia was looking at Issei with something like awe. So you could touch a holy sword? Or even use one? Theoretically, Issei said. Though I've never tried. My powers are more suited to close combat and blood manipulation than swordsmanship. You should try, Zenobia said suddenly, standing up. She unwrapped the cloth from her sword, revealing Durandal, one of the legendary holy swords of Christianity. If you can touch this without being burned, it would prove your nature definitively. Issei looked at Rias and Aquino, who both shrugged. It's your hand, Aquino said with a grin. But I'm curious now too. Taking a deep breath, Issei reached out and grasped Durandal's handle. Holy power surged through his arm, and for a moment everyone tensed, expecting him to scream or burst into flames. Instead, the sword's power seemed to recognize him, flowing around his vampire nature like water around a stone. The blade began to glow not with its usual blue-white light, but with a crimson-gold radiance. Impossible, Zenobia whispered. Durandal is accepting you. It's never done that for anyone except its chosen wielders. What does this mean? Asia asked, her eyes wide. It means Lord Dracal isn't just a vampire, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Sirzex Lucifer standing there with an amused expression. It means he's something entirely new, a vampire lord who can wield both holy and unholy power, who forms bonds that transcend traditional supernatural boundaries. In short, he's exactly the kind of being the supernatural world needs right now. Lord Lucifer, Zenobia said, immediately kneeling. I didn't realize you'd be here. Relax, Zenobia. I came to check on our guests and to make an offer. Sirzex walked into the room, his presence filling the space. Asia Argento, you were exiled by the church for healing a devil. Zenobia Corda, you're beginning to doubt the church's teachings. And Kaniko Tuju, you've been hiding your true Nekashin nature for fear of rejection. All three women stiffened at having their secrets laid bare. I'm offering you a choice, Sirzex continued. You can return to your previous lives, Asia to wandering alone, Zenobia to the church's increasingly questionable missions, and Kaniko to hiding what you are. Or, he gestured to Issei, Rias, and Aquino, you can join this family that's forming. Become part of Rias's peerage officially, and part of the Dracal dynasty unofficially. Learn, grow, and help build something new. Why would you want us? Asia asked quietly. I'm just a healer. I'm not strong like. You have twilight healing, Issei interrupted gently. One of the most powerful healing sacred gears in existence. And more than that, you have a pure heart and genuine faith. Those are rarer than any power. Kaniko, Rias added, we've known each other for years, but you've never felt safe enough to show your true self. Here, with us, you could be yourself fully. No hiding, no fear. And Zenobia, Aquino finished, you're a warrior at heart, but the church is limiting you. Here, you could fight for something real, not for an organization that exiled a saint like Asia for showing compassion. The three women looked at each other, then at the family unit sitting before them, Issei with Rias and Aquino on either side, the blood bond visible in how they moved and breathed in sync. I accept, Asia said first, her voice small but determined. I want to belong somewhere. And you're all so kind. I accept too, Kaniko said simply. The cat's out of the bag anyway. A small smile played at her lips at her own pun. Zenobia took longer, her hand still on Durandal's hilt. Finally, she nodded. The sword has chosen. I'll follow where it leads. I accept. Rias stood and pulled out 3 evil pieces, a bishop for Asia, a rook for Kaniko, who'd actually been her rook for years but would now officially reveal her full power, and a knight for Zenobia. Then by my authority as heir to the Gremory clan, I welcome you officially to my peerage, Rias said formally. But then she smiled warmly. And as your friend and king, I welcome you to our family. The ritual was quick but powerful. Asia gasped as the bishop piece merged with her, amplifying her already considerable healing abilities. Kaniko glowed with power as her rook piece was renewed, her yokai nature surging to the surface. Twin tails appearing behind her and cat ears becoming visible. Zenovia's knight piece settled into her with a flash of holy and unholy power combining. Now then, Sirzex said with satisfaction, I believe there are some personal conversations that need to happen. I'll take my leave. Rias, Issei, your parents want to meet with you tomorrow to discuss the wedding arrangements. Plural. He left with a knowing smile, leaving the 6 of them alone. An awkward silence fell. So, Zenobia said bluntly, Sirzex said dynasty unofficially. He means Lord Dracal is going to take multiple wives and we're candidates, correct? Because I'd prefer direct communication about such things. Issei nearly choked on his drink. Zenobia, what? You're a vampire lord. Multiple consorts is traditional. And I felt something when I touched you earlier, a pull, like fate or destiny. I assume the others felt it too. Asia's face was bright red, but she nodded slightly. When you shook my hand I felt warm. Safe. Like I'd found where I was supposed to be. Predator recognizes predator, Kaniko said quietly, her cat ears twitching. But also, mate recognizes mate. It's instinct. Rias and Aquino were trying not to laugh at Issei's expression. I told you they were attracted to you, Rias said through the blood bond. You didn't say they'd be this direct about it. Issei thought back frantically. Look, Issei said aloud, trying to regain some composure, I'm not going to lie to any of you. Yes, I'm building a vampire dynasty. Yes, that traditionally involves multiple consorts. And yes, I felt something with each of you too. But I'm not going to rush anyone into anything. Rias and Aquino, I've bonded with because we've spent weeks together, trained together, fought together. Any future bonds should be built on the same foundation: time, trust, and genuine connection. That's fair, Zenobia said, nodding approvingly. I respect that. So we court properly, train together, and see what develops naturally. Exactly, Issei agreed, relieved someone understood. I'd like that, Asia said shyly. I've never been courted before. It sounds nice. Acceptable, Kaneko agreed. Besides, need to test if you're strong enough. Can have weak mate. I just proved I can take down a mature devil. Issei protested. With help, Kaneko pointed out. Tomorrow. Spar with me. Then we see. Through the blood bond, Issei felt Rias and Aquino's absolute delight at his situation. Having fun? Aquino teased mentally. You two are enjoying this way too much, Issei thought back. We really are, Rias admitted. But we're also proud of you. You're handling this well. Most vampire lords would just claim them by force. You're actually courting them properly. Because they deserve better than being claimed, Issei responded. They deserve choice. He felt warm affection flow through the blood bond from both his consorts. So, Aquino said aloud, changing the subject, who wants to hear embarrassing stories about Issei from when he first woke up as a vampire? Yes. Asia said eagerly. Absolutely, Zenobia agreed. Obviously, Kaneko added. You're all traitors, Issei muttered, but he was smiling. As the evening continued with laughter and stories, 3 new threads of fate began to weave into the growing tapestry of the Draco dynasty. Asia's healing light, Zenovia's holy blade, and Kaneko's yokai strength would all play crucial roles in what was to come. But for now, they were just 6 people sharing dinner and getting to know each other. Sometimes, that's how dynasties began, not with grand declarations, but with simple moments of connection. 2 weeks later, the Occult Research Club had become a hub of constant activity. Issei trained with each of the women individually, learning their fighting styles and personalities. With Asia, the training was gentle, teaching her basic self-defense while she taught him about faith and how her healing worked. Their time together was soft and warm, and Issei found himself protective of her innocence in a way that felt almost paternal. But there was something more there too, a growing affection that made his heart skip when she smiled at him. With Kaneko, training was brutal. The Nekisha held nothing back, using her full rook strength and yokai abilities to test him constantly. But after each session, she'd curl up next to him in companionable silence, sometimes in her cat form, purring when he scratched behind her ears. The bond forming between them was one of mutual respect between predators. With Zenobia, training was philosophical. They'd spar with weapons, her with Durandal, him with blood-forged blades, while debating theology, honor, and purpose. She challenged his thinking constantly, and he found himself falling for her straightforward honesty and unwavering principles. And through it all, Rias and Aquino watched with approval, their blood bond keeping them connected to Issei's growing feelings for the 3 newcomers. It's time, Rias said one evening as they all gathered in the club room. Issei, we can all feel it. The bonds forming with Asia, Kaneko, and Zenobia are real. Not forced, not political, just genuine connection. What Bucho means, Aquino added with a smile, is that we think you should make it official. Blood bond them like you did us. Already? Issei asked, surprised. It's only been 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, you've fought beside them, trained with them, laughed and cried with them, Rias pointed out. Time isn't what matters, connection is. And we can all feel the connection. Do they want this? Issei asked. Yes, came 3 voices simultaneously. Asia, Kaneko, and Zenobia stepped forward, each wearing matching determined expressions. I've never belonged anywhere, Asia said softly. But here, with all of you, I feel home. I want this bond. I want to be part of this family. You're strong, honorable, and you see me as more than just my power, Kaneko said. That's rare. I want the bond. You've shown me that faith can exist outside the church's dogma, Zenobia declared. And Durandal has accepted you as worthy. I trust the sword's judgment. I want this bond. Issei looked at each of them, then at Rias and Aquino. Are you both sure? This will change everything again. We're sure, both women said together. Through the blood bond, he felt nothing but support and encouragement. Then, Issei said, standing and approaching the three women, let's do this properly. But not just feeding, the full bonding ritual with rings and vows. You're not just joining my peerage. You're becoming my consorts, my partners, my family. He pulled out 3 more blood oath rings he'd been crafting in secret for the past week, each one unique to its intended bearer. Asia's ring pulsed with healing energy, crimson crystal mixed with gold. Kaneko's had a feline grace to its design, with twin bands intertwined. Zenovia's incorporated a miniature blade design, symbolizing her warrior spirit. One by one, he approached them, taking their hands and sliding the rings onto their fingers while speaking the ancient vampire bonding words that his bloodline knowledge provided. Asia Argento, will you accept my blood, my protection, and my devotion? Will you stand beside me as consort and healer of the Draco dynasty? I will, Asia whispered, tears streaming down her face. He bit his wrist and offered it to her. She hesitated only a moment before pressing her lips to the wound, drinking his blood as the bond began to form. The moment she swallowed, light erupted from her body, her twilight healing responding to vampire blood by evolving into something new. When the light faded, Asia glowed with an inner radiance, her healing power now amplified 100-fold. Kaneko Tuju, will you accept my blood, my protection, and my devotion? Will you stand beside me as consort and warrior of the Draco dynasty? Yes, Kaneko said simply. She drank his blood without hesitation, and her yokai power exploded outward. Her 2 tails became 4, then 6, then finally settled at a magnificent 9 tails that marked her as a kyubi, a 9-tailed fox, one of the most powerful yokai in existence. Her transformation was complete, her true power